Back into the driving part of the trip. Thinking it's probably about time I let you guys know about me. I don't know. Does anyone care? I got a job driving trucks in Melbourne, driving delivery trucks for a company called Valiant Furniture, and we'd rent office furniture to startups and what we'd call startups now, or to small companies that just needed desks and chairs and filing cabinets, all that sort of crap for short periods of time. So I found myself constantly up in these high-rises businesses in Melbourne, just seeing beautiful women everywhere, and decided I want to work here. I want to work in a place like this. So I did a computer course and then went to a job agency, a placement agency, to try and get an office job. Never had an office. I've done everything before. I've worked in a hospital, worked cleaning engine heads. Oh man, you name it, I've done it. But I had never worked in an office. So I walk into this agency, and the guy introduces himself as Shane Higgins. And I'm like, in high school I had a good friend named Shane Higgins in Darwin. And he goes, I just got back from a holiday in Darwin. And we spent the next 45 minutes talking about Darwin and life and all that sort of stuff. And after about 45 minutes, he's just like, all right, well, you start on Monday. So no qualifications check, no actual interview on history and all that sort of stuff. We spoke about Darwin for 45 minutes and I got the gig. So it was a ANZ, it's a bank in Australia. They were starting or introducing a new facility on home loans called Redraw. Never been here before. And so they sent out letters to all mortgage holders saying this new thing's coming in. If you've got any questions, call this number. So they were setting up a dedicated call center for a short period of time, like a month or something, 2 months maybe, just to handle any incoming calls. They didn't know if they were going to get 50 calls or 50,000 calls. So they didn't want it to go through their main call center. So they set us up. So that day after Shane said, you start on Monday, I get home and this is going to be cool. So Shane rings me up and he goes, look, I forgot to mention, it's just going to be you and 30 women. Is that a problem? Shane, that's not a problem, mate. I'm good. I'll deal. It's all good. So yeah, come Monday, I go out into the burbs, even further than where we lived in Camberwell, for this call centre that ANZ had set up. So it's me and 30 women. I just could not believe it. It was hilarious. So they trained us up over a week in the type of calls that we were getting and the system that we'd have to look at if they had any questions and stuff, and basically no calls came through. It was just dead. So we were sitting there for a couple of weeks, and finally me and maybe 3 or 4 of the other women, we went up to Chris and Michelle, the guys from ANZ who were overseeing us, and we said, look, we're not getting any calls in, we're bored of our ass. Teach us something else, show us something else, give us some work, give us something to do. Surely, there's something that we could be doing. So they ended up training us up in a few other bits and pieces that the bank does, some processing work or, something menial, but something that they could take away from the actual main office and get some work done. And then finally, a week or 2 later, they decided to wrap up the call center because just weren't getting any calls through. They released everyone except us 4 or 5 who had actually shown initiative, and said, all right, this whole thing is closing down, but come Monday, you guys come into head office in the city. And so we did. So the following Monday, we went into 530 Collins Street in the city of Melbourne, up into the high rise, where, a month or two earlier I was like, oh, I'd like to be working up in here. And so they show us around. They did the tour. It was like a square donut-shaped building. Elevators obviously in the middle. And we rock up to the area that we'd been assigned to, I guess because we were handling calls on redraw. There was no place to turn right, mate. This is why I don't trust the map sometimes, because you've sent me on a bum steer. So we did the tour. They walked us around the floor, showed us all the different teams, and finally got to the team that I'd be working in. I think it's because I've just been working on redraw at the call centre that they put me into that team, but sort of walked around the corner and walked up to this young girl who was just so cute and sparkly and vibrant with just the biggest smile. And and introduced me to the team leader, who was Jess. So that's when I met Jess. Although Jess always had this thing that if you didn't know her, her name was Jessica. So unless you actually knew her, you couldn't assume that she liked to be called Jess. She'd always get pissed off in emails when she'd sign off saying, "Thanks, Jessica," and people would respond, "No worries, Jess." She'd like, "Ugh, I said it, Jessica." And that became evident when it was that day or the next day, I think. I'd walked into the break room. There was a pool table and a kitchenette and stuff, and Jess and her friend Avril were sitting there, and I walked in and said, "Hey, Jess." And she goes, "Ika." So me being the smart ass, I said, "Okay, no worries, Ika." So then for 18 years, Ika was a sort of pet, cute name. I'd call her Ika and she'd sign off cards and stuff. Your Ika. This map is telling me to turn right, and there's a cliff right there. What are you doing, bro? So yes. There was definitely a spark there. It was just immediate. Over sort of a year, 6 months, a year, we did late shifts together and just, spent hours talking. 10 o'clock at night, processing work. There's nobody else on the floor. You got nothing else to do but talk and get to know each other. Nothing could happen. She liked a guy in the office already. I had a girlfriend at the time. So after about 7 months or so working at ANZ, management came up with an idea to boost productivity and get through lots of backlog work and all those sorts of things. So they're like, all right, if you meet targets for like 4 weeks, a 4-week period of these targets, you have to hit X, Y, Z. We'll buy you a dinner, or we'll take you out to team dinner, or whatever it was. And then if you sustain that and you meet these new targets at 8 weeks, we'll do something grander. And then if you sustain that and you meet these additional targets at 12 weeks, we'll do something grander again. And they said this to all the different teams that were working. So our little team went to management and said, you know what? If we meet all the targets, the 4, the 8 and the 12 weeks, send us to Queensland. Send us to the Gold Coast, all expenses paid for the weekend. And management were like, okay.